Welcome back. You are watching Newscentre. Turkey's principal opposition party has claimed victory in the local body elections, providing perhaps the biggest jolt to President Erdogan and his iron fist rule of over 2 decades. Turkey's main opposition, the Republican People's Party, retained control of Ankara and Istanbul. Party leader Imamoglu secured a second term as Istanbul mayor, defeating the candidate belonging to Erdogan's party by more than 1 million votes. Opposition party supporters were out on the streets in Ankara and Istanbul waving flags and blaring car horns. Imamoglu announced that a one-man rule is over, added that democracy will go full speed from here. This is the first time since Erdogan came to power 21 years ago that his party lost votes across the country. Erdogan told supporters that this loss is not the end of him or his party, but a turning point, and he will rectify errors. There has been speculation that Erdogan, who has reached presidential term limits, was looking to extend his rule further by making amendments to the country's constitution. Let me now go across to former Indian ambassador to Turkey, Sanjay Bhattacharya. Ambassador Bhattacharya, thank you very much for joining us. How do you see this defeat in local elections in terms of strengthening the opposition, especially Imamoglu's candidature for the next presidential election?
Well, I think the election results show two very clear trends. The first is that the people at large are very dissatisfied with the economic slowdown, high inflation, and the other economic woes that have come up in the Turkish system. The second thing that has come about is that although President Erdogan had won a very slim majority in the presidential elections last year, what we do see now is that there are certain fissures within the AK Party, which is Erdogan's party, and there are new fundamentalist forces which are taking votes away. But more importantly, despite the fact that the opposition did not come together as it did during the presidential election, Imamoglu, the mayor of Istanbul, was able to engineer a massive victory in Istanbul, and the CHP, which is the main opposition party, has been able to get about 36 of the principal cities across the country. So this is a big victory for the opposition. What we also see is that a new opposition alliance of the Kurdish people have established a fairly strong foothold in the southeast of the country. And also we see that the Dem party, that is, and we see that some of the other opposition parties have faded into relative insignificance. People like the Yes party, which had actually done well in the past. So it's I think, as Erdogan said, it's a turning point, but perhaps for very different reasons.
All right. I'd also like to ask you the big contributory reasons to it. Is it just anti-incumbency, or is it also inflation, which is at a 67% high? At the same time, you've got the devaluation of the Turkish lira to the dollar, which has been a cause for concern as well.
Yeah, I think we must remember that Erdogan's personal popularity rides larger than that of the AK party. And we'd seen this in election after election. So I don't think the charisma of Erdogan is totally diminished. So I think he remains a very popular and charismatic leader in Turkey, and we should not diminish that particular part of his contribution to the economy in the early days. But as you had mentioned, I think the last decade has been one of great trial for the Turkish people, and most of it was because of economic woes. You mentioned about the inflation. The unemployment rate has been going up. The interest rates have been unbearable. And so all this has, in a sense, contributed to a very bad economy. Foundations of the economy have been shaken. Its external sector was affected, which had also affected its imports and export balance. But after Erdogan came in the elections as president last year, he did bring about certain changes in the economy to his credit. Not all of that has borne fruit, but I think a process has begun. I would say this is more because of the frustration, A, with the economic condition, and B, I think a lot of the young Turkish people have not seen another leader, so they want a change.
Right. But would you write off Erdogan at this juncture or not as yet? Do you feel that he could bring in amendments to further strengthen his rule, prolong his rule?
My personal sense is that Erdogan has made a huge contribution to Turkish economy and society, which the Turkish people cherish. I think the kind of development and social goals that Erdogan provided, the people at the grassroots in particular, over the first decade and a half of his rule, were truly extraordinary, which the people remember even to this day. And I think that's where the support base comes from. But I think this time what we do see is that the CHP itself has got a larger vote share than the ARC party put together. So, if you look at the opposition vote share, it is significantly higher than the ARC party. So I would not write Erdogan off because he is definitely still perhaps one of the most charismatic leaders that Turkey has had in recent times. And he's also a very shrewd and clever politician. So he would find ways to revise the approaches that he takes to reaching out to the people. And who knows what's going to happen the next time.
Right. Now, in terms of Imamoglu, he won the election for mayor in 2019 as well, and this time the opposition alliance has secured a larger number of seats. But in terms of Imamoglu himself, give us a sense of his policies, how he's appealing to the younger voter in Turkey, and what is his stand on some of the key economic issues which may resonate with people in future, Ambassador Bhattacharya?
I've met Imamoglu and I know him well. I would say he's a very progressive secular leader who has a very strong economic basis, which is based on the way the global economy would behave in the decades to come. So he is somebody who would be very good for Turkey's economy. He's also got a very popular, youthful image, which goes well with the young people of Turkey. So I think on that front as well, Imamoglu would be a very strong candidate in the next presidential election. There was a possibility that in the previous election, Imamoglu would be the candidate because of his charismatic personality. However, it was not the case. And I think the next time around in 2028, when the elections come up for presidency, Imamoglu would be a very strong candidate, but he would have to battle it out with certain others within his own party, including the mayor of Ankara, who's also been a very successful person and politician. But I think overall, if we have a candidate like Imamoglu, the young people in Turkey would really see a choice, which is what I think the people of Turkey are looking for in terms of choosing between Erdogan, if he found another way to be there as a candidate next time, and a CHP opposition candidate.
Right. Give us a sense of how the world, especially the West, would be looking at this election in the Middle East. In terms of Turkey's role in global geopolitics, what kind of change would the West, maybe India, be looking for?
Well, Turkey has had a very ambivalent view towards the Middle East. Turkey has not had very many friends in the Arab world, and its policies towards Israel have been somewhat ambiguous. And I think this is one of the reasons why, despite the fact that he has a reasonably conservative religious outlook, many of the people have felt that he has not gone far enough while the Israel-Palestine conflict rages in the Middle East. Part of this is also the reason why the fundamentalist Islamist party came up, and it has actually done very well this time, winning a very significant share of votes away from the AK party, which has traditionally had the support of the Islamists or people who were oriented towards a religious thing. So I think the way people will look at this particular outcome will be, I think so far as central policies are concerned, there will be no significant shift because the presidency and the federal government are not affected by the mayoral elections, which happen across the country, and the national policies may largely remain unaffected. But there is some amount of ambiguity, which I mentioned, which Erdogan would probably try to clarify, and we'll have to see which way he thinks the weather is going to be stronger. So far as the NATO alliance is concerned, I think Turkey will continue to use that for its own leverage for as long as it can, because that is a very strong bulwark of its overall policies towards geostrategy. In the Middle East, I think it has made some new overtures towards Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Egypt. And these will now supplement the policies of very, very friendly policies that it has with Qatar. And so we would expect that in the days to come, there would be much greater rapprochement, particularly with these four countries. And we will see that probably Turkey will try to weave itself into more of a central position on the Middle East affairs.
Ambassador, on India, give us a sense of our relations with Turkey recently. Any roadblocks or issues that you see in the relationship, which probably India would like to iron out in future?
Well, you see, there is broad support for a very strong partnership between India and Turkey across the board, even across the two parties. And this has happened primarily on the economic level. So if you look at the kind of economic engagement that we have, whether it's in terms of trade and investment, or it's in terms of the kind of other collaborations in terms of our infrastructure development. Turkish companies and Indian companies have been working in each other's countries very, very successfully and quite effectively as well. We do have very broad differences on certain political issues, particularly on their understanding of the so-called Kashmir issue, and some of those related to the Kashmir issue, on which President Erdogan has been rather outspoken. Some of these differences were not unknown in the past, but I think the fact that Erdogan has brought it out in public has made the situation somewhat skewed when it comes to our relationship. At the same time, it must also be admitted that there is a certain broad chemistry that is shared between the leadership of the two countries. And they do see eye to eye on various broader future-oriented perspectives. And I do see that the India-Turkey relations will definitely continue to prosper in times to come. Once we have, if there is a change in government, once we have a leadership that is not so focused on the differences on purely political issues, I think there will be much greater focus on the economic engagement, which will be to mutual benefit.
All right, we've run out of time, but Ambassador Bhattacharya, thank you very much for weighing in on this local election in Turkey and what it means for Turkey's domestic politics and its linkages with the world as well. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Centre. More news and updates continue right here.